Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Our summer break is over. Back. Too much news to have as featured guest with opinion maker panel the whole time, starting with the Prince of Phelps County. Maybe the man selected more Democrats than anybody I know right now. Jack Cardetti, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
First time on the show, the executive director of the Missouri Democratic Party, Lauren Gepford. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
David Barklage, dean of the Missouri Republican Party, donned in his pink attire. You can't see the pink socks. They look tremendous. Welcome back, sir.
They're hidden with all my notes.
There you go. Representative Dogan from here in St. Louis County. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
David Barklage, this is just good news for any governor when we have these job expansions like the one at Bear. This was a thing where Bear that kind of validated his trip to Europe. Comes back with real jobs, not just jobs that are small jobs in the winters. These are $100,000 a year jobs with benefits that are going to really make a difference. In you have to have a lot of jobs come in to make a difference in St. Louis County's economy, but this is the kind of expansion that will actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 500 jobs, over $110,000 average, but more importantly, you retained 4,000 jobs. And whether it's Republican or Democrat governor, the fact is the governor's office needs to be about sort of building those businesses and competing with other states, because that's what we're doing. We're competing not just with other nations, but we're competing with other states. And I think they're aware of it. They did one of the first reorganizations of government was in the economic development department, which I think bode good. They made it a lot more efficient. And so I think that's a good early win. And the state needs a lot of those, and an economy that we're operating now is the time that we need to take advantage of that.
Well,
so,
they'd say back home, better make hay while the sun shines, right?
Yes,
and then the
absolutely.
economy and the sunshine, better make hay. Dogan, this validates some of the stuff that you did in the House. Lincoln Huff helped carry a lot of the governor's priorities through. This is maybe him be able to take these programs and put them to use. And I know there's some folks that say, well, there's this ideological thing and that thing they could nitpick. But if you're a person in St. Louis County, if you're one of your constituents, you get one of these jobs, you don't care about all that. You want to go to work.
That's right. The governor has been excellent on economic development, and it really is a boost to the St. Louis region's psyche. Because, we see all these headquarters leaving, and, when Monsanto got bought out by Bayer, a lot of people had some fears that, they were going to be taking jobs away, but we're actually adding jobs to win, both for the governor and for St. Louis County, for sure.
Jack, they got a fine German company expanding here in Missouri. That's what life's about, right?
You know what's so ironic? I was told, I think last August, we wouldn't get these type of jobs unless we became a right-to-work state.
I did hear that somewhere.
That didn't quite end up being true.
Where I heard that.
And I think 67% of Missourians saw right through that lie. So good, obviously.
So you're saying the real credit here goes to people in Missouri?
Absolutely. Stood up for working people.
Lauren Gepford, it's a good time for the state. There was a person I saw on that stage very prominently featured. He was no stranger to the state capitol, but I saw Van Buren Bulldog Sam Page, new county executive, on the stage there, and it was a very natural conversation. It looked like between him and Parson. It looked like he's found a way to maybe come into that role and begin to actually work on some stuff that really matters. And look, if St. Louis County's economy suffers, there's no roads in Sedalia, right?
Well, I mean, Sam's serving us well, and new jobs are always good. It was interesting that Governor Parson didn't show up for that press briefing, because maybe he's having some issues with people protesting his events after some of being in the spotlight over the HB 126 stuff.
That's the abortion bill, correct?
Yes.
Let's talk about how that sort of led into Nichole Galloway's pretty well put it out there. She's running for governor. And one of the reasons why it seemed like she's sold some news outlets was that abortion bill. Nichole Galloway going to carry the standard, and what does that mean for not just the governor's race, but down ticket and state rep races and state senate races throughout Missouri?
Well, Governor Parson had the opportunity to be a moderate and create legislation that was economically focused for all of Missourians. He's really taken an extremist turn this last session with HB 126, the abortion bill, even in cases of rape and incest. And Nichole is seriously considering the race, and I think that nationally speaking, she may be the only female running in a state that's currently held by Republicans, as well as maybe the only female running in a state that passed an extremist abortion ban. In the fundraising, Governor Parson has been a little underperforming there. He and Auditor Galloway are pretty neck and neck on that. And I think she's got a really good shot at it, because he had a chance to be a moderate, and instead he's been really going down the road of extremism. Also to that, he did not announce Pride Month and has not been even hearing the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act.
Well, it's Jack. I think that if you looked at the candidates that could have stepped up, Nichole Galloway is a very strong candidate for governor.
Yeah, I mean, she's the type of fiscal conservative, somebody that's going to watch the state's finances. I mean, just this week, another person's heading to prison because of one of her state audits for misusing public resources.
In some ways, I think that's a testament to Jay Nixon's legacy. I mean, he did have confidence in her as a county elected official, and I think she's not only done the state well, but I think she's done his legacy very well.
You know, the odd thing about politics, and we all know this, right? The best politics you can do is doing your day job well. And she's really done that very nicely. I think the other interesting thing here, I think Jay Ashcroft has put Parson in an odd position by not allowing the referendum to go forward, which could have been on an August ballot next year, an earlier ballot. There's going to be an initiative petition. David Humphreys, of all people, is backing that. That's going to be headed for the November ballot. Governor Parson's going to be running for re-election. At the same time, he's going to be trying to defend why there's not a rape and incest exception to the bill he signed.
Shabbat Dogan, if you're in a room doing strategy for Republicans, I think it's very hard to come up with ways to say Nichole Galloway is a terrible person or awful, or is not going to be are we not going to see for a solid year just tying her to the National Democrats?
That's going to be tough. She's done a decent job as auditor, which is why I think she should probably stay in that job. And
that was well put.
I think that her trying to run against Mike Parson is going to be tough, both ideologically and personality-wise. He's just somebody who's friendly, who's accessible, and casting him as some kind of boogeyman, that's going to be a tough road for her to hoe.
Now, David Barklage, I'm just a simple Wes Butler County hillbilly. You're a big-time Cape Girardeau political consultant. I think both of these people are fundamentally good people. If they end up as their party's nominees, I think it's hard for me to believe Nichole Galloway is this awful, terrible person. I think it's hard for me to believe that this Polk County farmer is some terrible, corrupt guy. It is. I think that the normal attacks are going to be hard to fit on these two people that are fundamentally good people.
I agree, and in any kind of race like that with Trump on the ballot, it's going to favor overwhelmingly the governor. I would take one exception. I think that Nichole being new to politics, having really effectively one statewide race underneath her, I think she's going a little south in regards to her approach of auditor. Tom Schweik, when he was in there, really professionalized it, and I think her latest hit on the governor, when I worked with the Lieutenant Governor for 12 years, Peter Kander. When he left, they did 3 months to do an audit of his 12 years. She took a year to do 18 months of Mike Parson and criticized him for spending $100 going to Branson, which Parson sits on the Tourism Commission to promote tourism. And I'll just say one other thing. She criticized Greitens and Partons on refunds, and you've got article after article, press release after press release. Do you want to see the press release that she did on Jay Nixon? You want to see the press release she did on Jay Nixon for him failing to get out refunds on time? Here it is right here. Point is, I think her partisan approach against Parson's bipartisan approach is going to end up disservicing her.
I will say this: I've known Nichole Galloway. I've observed her since she was appointed state auditor. Some of the more partisan attacks, they don't seem to fit her. When Parson tries to throw the partisan ones at her, I'm not sure they're going to sound right. It does seem like, and it's almost a compliment, like playing just partisan politics doesn't seem to fit her that well.
Yeah, there's an old saying, competence never goes out of style, right? And she's done a really good job as state auditor, and I think for a lot of people, they're going to take an extra look at her running for governor and think, okay, I'd like to see the same leadership on a statewide level. The really interesting thing about this race is that in most times you have an incumbent governor, very well known, very with voters having real definite awareness of their standing.
They voted for him for that office, yeah.
Here, for Mike Parson, he is an incumbent governor that's not very well known at all, right? And it's one of the reasons that him signing this extreme abortion bill that not even Shabbat Dogan could vote for here has really put in the spotlight, because that's one of the first things that a lot of voters are actually noticing about him.
It's put in the spotlight, but polling that we just did came out actually showed it strengthened his primary base, and actually put him over 50% for re-elect. So,
well, sure, and what that tells me, David, right, is that they're worried about a primary there, right? And just this week, we've seen Eric Greitens get back into the political arena, do stuff with his campaign committee. And so if he's more worried about a primary in this race than the general election, that's problematic.
The governor didn't sponsor legislation. The governor signed it. So the governor did the right thing by signing it. But most importantly is the fact that the legislation's impact actually shored up his base. And so I don't think he can be taken in primary. And in fact, because of the proclivity of the voters in the state, he's in a very solid re-elect position. He's leading her in double digits.
Well, Jack, let me ask you this, though. If you reinforcing the fact Mike Parson's pro-life, is that really going to hurt him? Like, I saw these protesters out at these events. I don't think Bill Eigel minds if you want to protest admit he's too pro-life, and I don't know that that hurts Parson. Maybe this specific piece of legislation does, but at the end of the day, Missouri voters overwhelmingly vote for pro-life candidates. Jay Nixon wasn't the most pro-choice candidate when he was elected governor and reelected.
Him signing that bill has oddly brought your moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans together. David Humphreys is the biggest one funding an effort against this, and yet in what we're going to see is in the suburbs in St. Louis and Kansas City, you will see extra reason to get out and vote, and that's what a Democrat in Missouri needs.
In the presidential year, I'm not sure that the overall impact will be that great. Again, our polling shows that it actually helped them shore up the base, and in terms of I think Scott is saying is that the majority of Missourians are pro-life. I think all it did cement them. The people that were pro-life before this bill are still pro-life. The people that are pro-choice for this bill are still pro-choice. They may be both energized, those groups, but when it comes down to it, vote to vote, you end up winning if you're on the pro-life side.
Lauren Gepford, though, you look at when I think of when Democrats have majorities, I think of places like they had Jefferson County they could win, and those are generally pro-life Democrats that won Jefferson County, Eastern Jackson County, those places. This bill is the benefit to this bill. Does it energize people that were, maybe they were pro-choice, but they didn't vote on it as one of their top priorities? Does it change that, or can you go to Jefferson County and convince them that this bill is too extreme and they should be more pro-choice? I mean, what is the path forward to get that coalition you talked about of moderate Republicans and Democrats to come together and elect Jay Nixon or Claire McCaskill? I
mean, some of the past polling shows that people who may be anti-abortion also find this to be extremely extreme, and that it's not. Yes, exactly. Republicans and Democrats alike. On the Democratic side, it also does energize our base because they now see that those in power are just as extreme as they are. Nicole Galloway has been a fighter for us and a government watchdog and has been pretty fair. So it's making quite the contrast there between somebody who was relatively unknown in Governor Parson, who's making his name off of an anti-choice bill, with Nicole Galloway, who's holding government accountable and holding elected officials accountable.
But we're yet to see if she embraces the Fabulous Four's agenda, if she embraces the presidential agenda. That's going to put a lot of interest and cross pressures on her.
Can a Missouri Democrat outrun national Democrats and keep distance from them?
I mean, they're always going to affect us.
I mean, look, and that's the difference between running for a federal office and running for a state office. David Barklage would love for Nicolle Galloway to be running for Congress right now with the Fab Four. She's not. She's running for governor. And guess what? People in Missouri, voters want for governor. They want somebody that represents them. They want somebody that will actually take a thoughtful approach to the real issues everyday Missouri.
You got to not invite him back.
He's a qualified man to run for governor. Schmidt, Dogan, when you're in the room, though, I would, if I had to guess, if there is polling on this issue, where it is very unpopular is your district. I would assume your constituents did not like this bill. And when you go forward, to me, I always thought the worst thing that happened for Republicans is Roe versus Wade gets overturned. Then the energy and the enthusiasm goes the other way. Is this bill a tipping point to where you start to see people that are generally pro-life go, oh, this is too much, but do they actually vote Democratic over it?
That's the thing, is I think when you talk about extremism, you got to look at where the Democratic Party is on abortion. I mean, they just had a huge fight last year where they basically told anybody who's pro-life, you're not welcome in the Democratic Party. Sorry, get out. So even if you were considering abandoning Republicans and voting a different way, the Democrats have told you if you're pro-life, they don't want your vote. They don't see any kind of nuance in things like taxpayer funding for abortion. We've seen all the presidential candidates say that they support taxpayer funding, that they support basically abortion on demand, even late-term abortions. So if you're going to look at the Republican Party making mistakes on this issue and going too far, I think you've got to look at the fact that the Democratic Party has gone too far the other way. We mostly have a majority of people who, even if you describe yourself as pro-life like I do, for a long time pro-lifers have said they want exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. And I think policy-wise, that's where we should be at the end of the day. That's where President Trump is. That's where President Reagan was. But if you go too far, I don't think you're going to face too much of a backlash. It might hurt you in a few districts, but not statewide.
It's where Roy Blunt is, for all God's sakes. I mean, that's how far out of the mainstream on this issue some of these are. I mean, you're to the right of Donald Trump,
yeah, but this
Roy
is
Blunt, and
a
others.
challenge. You know, and I know it. New York took the first step of allowing partial birth abortions up to birth using chemicals that they won't even use on convicted murderers. And the fact is other states have responded, and they're all looking for a court challenge.
We have a time challenge. I don't think this will be the last time we talk about this here. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about the president's tweets. But first, I want you to do me a favor. go to ShoneyMissouri.com. That's with an AH like it's supposed to be spelled. We do the history of Missouri one county at a time. This week we're in Mississippi County, down in the boot of the furthest easternmost county. We talked about Ulysses S. Grant's first combat experience, and I tried to get my buddy Jimmy Kander to tell me how the courthouse was burned. Barklage has an idea. Couldn't get it out of him. But listen to the history of Missouri one county at a time, Mississippi County. We'll be right back after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads, because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to a Never Dull This Week in Missouri Politics full panel episode. Shamed Dogan, it's a very good week to have you on. Talk about criminal justice reform, an issue that you've taken. I've always felt like these issues for Republicans, you say don't trust the government, you say trust individuals, don't accept if it's a cop, right? If it's a cop, then Republicans say no, we're darn near communist, right? So Iowa is interesting. You took these issues on. I found them easy to get bills introduced, easy to pass them through the House. You've actually passed some legislation that was signed by the governor that I thought is a real turning point for people holding government accountable. And now you're having hearings next week. What's the status of them?
Well, we're really looking forward to these hearings. We're going to be focused on racial profiling, the report that just came out from the Attorney General showing that African Americans are 91% more likely to be stopped than white motorists. That's the highest disparity we've had since we've been tracking this data in the last 20 years. So we're inviting law enforcement, prosecutors, defense attorneys, community leaders, everybody who has a stake in these issues to come out and just share their opinions and try and come up with solutions. Love them or hate them, the NAACP putting us on their travel advisory list was a huge hit for Missouri. Fair or unfair, that's something that happened and that has hurt the image of our state. And if we don't get this racial profiling issue under control, it's an economic issue at the end of the day. You want people to move to your state, and if you're seen as being unwelcome to minorities, the biggest minority in our state, then that's not a good sign and that's not a good look. We're also going to be talking about civil asset forfeiture, which is otherwise known as legalized theft, because police can seize your property and your cash when you're driving down the highway, which they do to the tune of $9 million, again, an all-time high in our state. And you have to basically prove your innocence to get your property back, and that's backwards and that's
part of this is judges think they work for the cops, right?
That's right, and this is something that local municipalities, especially now that we've had Senate Bill 5 and they've seen some of their revenues decrease, they're looking for ways to make up that money somewhere else. And so this is really taxation by citation taken to the nth degree.
David Barklage, I was down in Shannon County this week, and I think Shamed Dogan would love if every judge in this state came from Shannon County. There wouldn't be that many search warrants.
Well, there's Shannon County Justice.
Exactly right.
Danny.
It doesn't involve the government getting on your property. I can guarantee you that.
Look, I think the prison reform, the criminal reforms they're doing are long overdue. The mischaracterization, though, is that it's not just the black community. In poor white communities, the same thing. People that are underrepresented, there's not a media there to undercover it. So this is something that happens in rural Missouri. In urban Missouri, it cuts across lines, and candidly, it's long overdue. I think it's good. I disagree with Shamed from a standpoint. The NAACP, I think it was punitive and wrong, their action. But I think that outside of that, I think we're moving forward.
Isn't this part of Republicans' fault? Is every other part of government you're supposed to scrutinize and mistrust, except one part of government that can do the most harm to you?
Well, I think it's frustrating when you know, I mean, probably everybody here has been stopped and been treated in a way that you're like, why is this guy being such a, I can't use any of the terms I'd like to use, but law enforcement, you know, they hit a high, they're more aggressive to everybody, in particular, you know, young African Americans. I mean, so it is a turnaround, and it's frustrating being the Republican Party sometimes, where we consider ourselves law and order, and sometimes we're blinded by some of the facts. But I think the party has taken a look at that, and especially with a sheriff in the governor's mansion is sensitive to that. I think we've come a long way, and I think we're going the right direction.
Well, Gepford, this is a thing where I think Democrats have been on this issue for a long time, and now Republicans are coming over to their side on it.
Yeah, I think that we've been leading the way on this for many years, 20 or so, and it is hopeful to see that Republicans are starting to come to our side and championing this legislation in some cases too. Oh no, I think you all should join ours.
It has been interesting, Jack. Just in your career, Republicans have changed their views on this quite a bit.
Absolutely. The progress that Shamed and others are leading in Jeff City is really, really important for a number of reasons. But it's also one of the reasons why it's so frustrating that we're making progress on social justice issues at the same time that President Trump is inflaming racial views in this country to try to win re-election, and that's really bothersome, right? I mean, there's five of us on this panel. I'm guessing 4 of us have never been told to go back where we came from. And when President Trump, the leader of the free world, says that, that is really problematic, and it undercuts a lot of the progress that we're seeing in this country.
Before we get into the president's tweets, I want to talk about former Governor Eric Greitens. Been a lot of rumors, very compelling person. This week there's a DPS audit. He actually came on camera for the first time to defend Drew Juden, who was fired last year. Jack Cardetti is a Democrat. You have to be like, oh, you got to run, man, run, right?
I think there's only one person on this earth that's not self-aware enough to know that Eric Greitens' political career is over. And he probably went on TV this week, right? And right now, I think he's actively out there shopping for a billionaire. If he can find a billionaire that'll finance his next campaign, I think you'll see Eric Greitens back on the ballot in Missouri. Thank you.
Good thing Jeffrey Epstein's not available anymore.
David Barklage, though, I will say, he has some support. Now, maybe it's because of the social media age. You can be very you can be very loud with it, but there is still some support for Eric Greitens. And if he ran for office, he'd be a formidable candidate in a Republican primary.
Right. Eric wanted to be president. I think he still wants to be president.
Sure.
He knows to get there that he has to come back. So he's always going to be looking for opportunity. My guess is that we're seeing a lot of balloons out there. There's no cost to him to sort of see what the temperature is from the grassroots, from the media, everything else. I would say polling shows that he has some support among Republicans, but among independents and Democrats, he gets slaughtered. And so I think that maybe that time is not yet, if I were advising him. You know, we've got mixed signals. He was in Washington, D.C. this week, meeting with some politicos. He amended his committee, and as all of us know in the committee reports, he could have re-amended it to any office. He could have amended it to any election, but he chose governor primary. So find that interesting. It could just sort of be him again, sort of putting out balloons to see people's reaction to it. I think there's too many unresolved issues still from his administration. Forget Gardner. You've got ethics. You've got FEC. You've got other issues out there that I think he needs time. I think he needs time.
I saw Jeff Rowe did a thing. There was some kind of oddball Democrat presidential candidate, Mary Ann something. He started giving her money so she'd make the next debate. Are you going to start encouraging Democrats to give Eric Greitens?
Yeah, we could take a page from that book. But if he does run, then we will be very much reminding Missourians of how he went down in flames.
But you might wait till after the primary, right?
We'll see.
Let's talk about the president's tweets. David Barklage, you know, we're from Southeast Missouri, the place in Missouri that loves Trump the most. I have to say, some of the tweets I don't know. I understand what he's doing. If in Missouri, you want some of these far left people to be on the other side. If whatever the issue is on the TV, if my dad's watching, he's going to see them, and he's going to see Trump, and he's going to be more pro-Trump. But it might be good politics in certain places, but is it good for the country?
Look, no. I think Shamed and I almost got in a fist fight earlier about his tweets.
I
look at politics from a strategic view. And Trump's positioning those 4 individuals against him and making the debate all about them and shining light on them, you know, I almost think that his staff has finally figured out how to actually utilize his tweets to accomplish certain strategies. So I think there is a strategic brilliance in what he's doing. But I saw Newt Gingrich, and I wish I could remember the term, and if anybody here can remember the term Gingrich used to describe sort of his tone, it was probably the most politically correct term I could think of, and I can't remember it, but I agree. I think that this decade is going to be remembered for whatever our reasons are, whether it's personal reasons, whether it's whether it is interest group reasons. We are tearing down institutions. He is tearing down, I think, the presidency from a standpoint of his tone, just as we're seeing Congress torn apart by, where people are saying that the traditions shouldn't matter anymore because it doesn't get us what we want. I think the entire tone of political debate in America, the tearing down of heroes, the tearing down of institutions, the tearing down of the presidency, is going to be a precursor to much more serious issues in the future.
Dogan, when you were speaking earlier, as a person who's always been a Republican, I remember thinking just a few minutes ago, it's very nice to hear a very thoughtful take on a serious issue like abortion. You've had some thoughtful takes on President Trump before. You have to almost be like, I told you so. This is where this is going to build and just keeps going, right?
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. And I think one of the things that I keep coming back to is what is morally wrong cannot be politically right. And the president exacerbating these kinds of old hatreds and using them politically against his opponents, even if it helps you in rural Missouri in 2020, it's going to kill you everywhere else in 2024. And it's just the wrong thing to do. I mean, why would you be highlighting this kind of stuff if you're trying to grow the Republican Party and you're trying to get people to vote for you? He's just doubling down on the people who already support him.
Jack, does it end up ever mattering? Do these tweets even matter anymore?
Yeah, look, this presidential election is going to get decided in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I don't think he's doing himself any favors in those states there. I think he is abandoning almost reaching out to the independent voters right now. And this early on, that is a real strategic mistake.
Can you take these in Missouri and do anything with these, or is these just for places that aren't here? Or is it like a congressional, the 2nd district? Can you take them and do something there?
I mean, definitely paints him as an extremist, and Democrats in Missouri will be reminding folks that while Republicans or Donald Trump are pointing fingers at people of color, brown, black, new immigrants, and blaming them for our problems, it's really working people who need to come together and stop being divided by our president and work together and vote for some new leadership so that we can move forward.
Jack, ready with a minute left? Who won the week?
My old friend Jason Kander ran the week. He there's a nonprofit veterans community project over in Kansas City. They've effectively ended veterans homelessness over in Kansas City. He's going to lead the expansion of that throughout the country. Not a better guy to do it. So glad that he's doing well, and he'll be great in that role.
Okay, thank you for joining us for the first time. Who won the week?
I would say Nichole Galloway. She had some good audits come out, and there's also word on the street that Governor Parson is having some second thoughts about running for governor, and I think running for re-election, I think that it's because Nichole is seriously considering that race.
Wrong!
I'll ask you who won the week.
I think all that does is fire up the sheriff from Polk County.
Yeah.
So I think the state party, Gene Evans and Kay Ovelander, I think they are pulling the party together and starting to come together to make a difference.
Who won the week?
Twitters.
I would say Senator Caleb Rowden, with Kip Kendrick announcing he's not running. Caleb's on a pretty good glide path to re-election.
Very good week for a very good senator. I'm going to say Missourian, the mayor-elect of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas. Great week. He's coming off. Doing a very good job pulling some people together, pulling some old folks together. But I want to say a predecessor of his, Emmanuel Cleaver, terrific way he represented Missouri, talking about stopping the fighting, made all of us look good. And I have one more in 3 weeks, a 10-year-old birthday, Millie Faughn, happy 10th birthday. And we'll see you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.